Alright, we're gonna do this all in one take because that is what I feel like doing. Welcome to the King Rock Season 2.5 DTT Retrospective. Now, for this, I'm just going to go over my own games, not anyone else's on my team, even though I am the coach. Just because I don't want to really critique everyone else's play, at least not yet. This is a new thing I'm doing because I saw Bobby's video and was jealous that he had a video and I didn't, so I've made my own. Um, I might go back and do season retrospectives of other seasons I have done. I think you can think of a couple of them that I might do. Um, and I just wanted to start with this because it's very short. They're all wins, and I just kind of want to see how this works. I'm hoping to have some fun, and maybe, who knows, I might say something insightful. So, before we do anything else, first I want to actually, before we get into the games, I want to actually go over the team that we drafted. So let's go to the doc here. And so, we were the first overall pick in Oras. So, that basically meant we had a choice between Kiram Black and Latios. And the reason we went with Latios was well, there was really two main reasons. One is the speed, it's 15 points faster than Kiram Black. And two is the just typing and levitate, which means Latios is a lot more resilient against hazards. It's neutral to rocks and isn't hit by spikes. Kiram Black is hit by both and is weak to rocks. So, since this is a six-person draft, having the first overall pick is a bit of an advantage. So, by the time it gets back to us, there's still some good stuff on the board. So, for our first wheel, we chose Clefable, which is arguably another top 3 mon in the Oras format. It can do a lot of things. It can do Life Orb sets very well. It can just be a standard wall. It sets up rocks. Unaware is really useful in the draft format for some teams. And all of my games, I think it came Magic Guard, but we did have at least a game where it came Unaware and put in a lot of work. But yeah, Clefable is just one of the best mons in the format, and I was very happy that it fell all the way to the second, or to our first wheel. And then for the other pick was a mon that we drafted a little early, top of the third round, but we knew we wanted to use it, and we knew it would not get back to us, and that Pokemon is Klefki. Klefki ended up being one of the heroes of this season of DTT for us. In Gen 6, it is probably a top 10 mon in the format after playing through 2 seasons of basically just doing Oras. Klefki is just insane. There's a few things about Gen 6 that makes Klefki incredibly broken. The first being Prankster affects Dark types, so basically everything in the entire game can be antagonized by Klefki. And the second is Thunder Wave is 100% accurate and still quarter speed in Gen 6. So getting Thunder Waved is effectively a death sentence, and Klefki has priority on that. So then our second wheel, we knew we needed a ground type and a water type. Those are two very important types. And so what we went with was Lantern and Lando I. Lando I is a little cheap in this format at 13 points. A little cheaper than it should be because of the weakness to HP Ice. And I thought that the points it saved could help us make upgrades to the roster later on. And Lantern at 4 is a huge value for a few reasons. First of all, it has one of the most unblockable Volt switches in Gen 6 because one of the strategies to get around electrics in Gen 6 is to draft like 2 ground types or like 2 electric immunities to force your opponent's electric to pick a hidden power, and then you're still walled by one of them. And that's how you deal with the strongest electrics. With Lantern, it can hit basically any 2 combination of ground types in the game super effectively because of its Water Stab, Ice Beam, HP Grass. And that makes it an insane value at 4. Also, Scald is just insane in Gen 6. because burned is still 13%. But yeah, so those were 2 picks. You got a bit of a Volt turn core here to bring Latios in, so it's going very well. Next, we drafted the tank, Skuntank, a mod that I truly despise in Gen 8, but in Gen 6 it has a lot more going for it in Gen 6. A bit of a lower power level means its bulk is actually usable, so assault vest sets are decently viable. It has defog still in Gen 6, meaning it's one of the only defoggers, one of the only non-flying type defoggers so it's one of the only non-rocks weak defoggers. And it has pursuit still in Generation 6, and I feel pursuit in ORAS draft is incredibly important because you need to have that level of threat, because without a pursuiter, stuff like Gengar can just walk all over you. You need to have something that's forcing it to take its time and either go out of its way to check your pursuiter or just wait until it's dead so you can sort of play around that. The other mon we drafted was Tangela on this wheel, and Tangela is a very good mon. Again, insane value at 4 points. It's just a good physically bulky wall. It's a grass type. Eviolate with regen is really good. And then that leads us to our last 2 picks, which were Primeape and Mega Mane. Now, Primeape never actually came to a game, but we drafted it as sort of a formality to cover that base 100 speed tier, because that is a bit of an issue with Lando I being at 101 rather than 100. Yes, you outspeed the base 100s, but then base 100s can run modest against you if your next fastest mon is Skuntank, which it was at the time. Now, did Primeape do a good job dissuading base 100s from running a lot of bulk? Absolutely not, but it checked the box, and it's a fighting type. There were a couple times it almost came to games. And then finally we had Mega Mane. Now, my team did want to go with Mega Arrow for some time. I convinced them to pivot to Mega Manectric because we saved some points. Earlier in the draft, we could afford Mega Manectric, and in Gen 6, it is an absolute demon. Because of hidden power, it's an insane hit and run attacker with Volt Switch and Intimidate, and it's one of the better cleaners in Gen 6. It basically fulfills a sort of Zeraora Tapu Koko role in Gen 6. And because we waited until the end of the draft to pick it, a lot of teams did not have the best ground, like cores, to check an electric, so we really only 1 week had to debate what hidden power to choose. Otherwise, it was obvious, or we just didn't have to run hidden power at all. So into the games, I played 4 games. This Gen 6 team in and of itself went 5-1. So 4-0 with me, 1-1 without me. And so our first game is against Naito, and I believe their team was the Rainbow Unicorns of Straightness. And this was a lead-off game, so no pressure on either side yet. And so my team is, we have Mega Manectric with just, I believe, HP Ice, Thunderbolt, Volt Switch, and Flamethrower. Latios, which is just a generic attacker with Psychic Draco. Lantern, which is an Assault Vest set with Volt Switch, Scald, Hidden Power, Thunderbolt. Landorus is a Scarfer with U-Turn, Earthquake, Knockoff, Stone Edge. Clefable, now this was a set Tago came up with. Clefable is Life Orb, Moonblast, Fire Blast, Psychic, and I think maybe Rocks? I'm sorry, it's been a while since this particular game was played. And the idea with this Clefable was to just sort of lead off with it and take as many mons down as we can, because we don't respond to their team defensively very well at all. We have like no switch into Mega Gardevoir. And then our last mon is a specially defensive Tangela with Giga Drain, HP Fire, Sludge Bomb, Sleep Powder. Alright, let's get into it. So we lead off. I lead off with Clefable. He goes Thunderous to just sort of U-turn out, scout my team. And so I figure here I'm just good to fire off a Moonblast. And I do, and it does 59. So he knows I'm Life Orb at this point. So I'm pretty free to Moonblast again here, and I'm glad I did because he could go Ferrothorn and then pivot to Scout for a fire move by like getting in Keldeo or Mega Gardevoir in on a fire move. So I decided to play it very conservative here. If he goes Ferrothorn and just does all that prediction, he does it, good on him. If not, I Moonblast, Donphan goes down. Fire Blast would not have KO'd Donphan. And if I Moonblast here, it will probably get him to think that I'm either not a fire move or that maybe I am Flamethrower, which I believe Ferrothorn would have lived Flamethrower and not Fire Blast, and so he then could have Gyro Balled me. So I just Moonblast again, take out Donphan, and because he lives Flamethrower, he does go Ferrothorn, and I reveal the Fire Blast, and that's 2 mods down in the first 3 turns, so this is going insanely well. Now he goes into Mega Guard, and the important thing about Gen 6 Mega Mechanics is that on the first turn that you Mega Evolve, you have the speed of your regular form. Now, this can be very bad if you don't Mega Evolve in like a safe way to get your speed up on something you know you're faster than. In this case, because Mega Guard is not exactly fearful of Primeape, he ran basically no speed on this. I think it was maybe creeping Skuntank, no speed Skuntank. But yeah, it was basically mid speed. And our Clefable is incredibly fast. It was pretty close to max, I think. And so on this turn, he gets the Mega up and I Moonblast. And that's a 3-hit KO, but that's insane damage here. Especially because he goes for Encore, attempting to lock me into Fire Blast to maybe set up on me or maybe just fire off some attacks, KO the Clefable for free. But now I get off another Moonblast, and Moonblast is going to 2-hit KO Thunderous, and it's going to just Oko Keldeo and Honchkrow, so he kind of has to just stay in and take this second Moonblast. He Hyper Voices, doesn't KO, comes close, but I still have 10%, and now Mega Guard is down to 15, and now I get my safe Mega off, because I go into Mega Main and Volt Switch on the Mega Gardevoir. So now I'm in with the unit, which pretty much just walls Thunderous indefinitely, so he U-turns, I get off another Volt Switch into Mega Main to intimidate this Honchkrow, because this thing is a bit of a threat if it's a Scarf Moxie. And so I intimidate it, take the chip, and just U-turn to finish that off. Now back into Lantern, which he doesn't really respond to very well. He does 50 to the AV Lantern, and I just Volt Switch on that. Then we're into Tangela. And now Tangela doesn't take very much from Hidden Power, but I miss Sleep Powder. So I probably should have just Sludge Bomb twice, and then here Hidden Power gets a crit, so I need to switch out here. I'm pretty free to just go Lantern. He U-turns into Keldeo. Here I just Volt Switch. He is Scarf, and he uses Icy Wind, so I know I am free to Volt Switch into Manectric. I'm pretty sure he Icy Wind. The reason I know he's Scarf is that the Icy Wind does normal damage to unboosted damage to Lantern. And because he's using Icy Wind here, I figure he could be aggressive in predicting, but like I have 13%. I'm well more than likely to just sack. So I figure he is trying to lock into Icy Wind to have any chance of winning. So I know he's almost definitely Scarf. So I go to main. I dodge Icy Wind. That would not have killed. Even with a crit, I don't think it would have. And I just go into Latios, take very little from Hidden Power Ice, and just finish it off with a Psychic. So week 1, pretty well. Pretty well, 5-0. And so then I go on to week 2. Week 2 is against Scamp and the Swolbasaurs. And this is the only week where I was actually the third game instead of the first game. So the pressure is on me here. We are 1-1 this week, and I think if I win, we clinch a playoff spot at this point already. Because it's already pretty late into the season. We're already 2-1. So I've brought my heatest sets for this. Mega Main is again just sort of standard fare. I believe it's Hidden Power Ground with Volt Switch, Flamethrower, Thunderbolt, because Hidden Power Ground hits Raikou and Nidoking. And then Latios is a set I'm actually very proud of. It is Subcom Mind Dragon Pulse Recover. I wanted to be Roar over Calm Mind, but I was talked out of it because I figured I could stack spikes and then just roar his team around. But I just wanted a set that would 1v1 Absol. Like, Latios, even with just Dragon Pulse, is an insane threat to their team. As you can see, their only real Dragon resist is Skarmory. And unless it has Taunt or Roar, it just gets Calm-Minded up on, and eventually Latios gets out of hand. Clefable is just standard defensive with rocks, I'm pretty sure. Landorus is triple dance with Rock Polish, Swords Dance, Gravity, Earthquake. Because their team only has one Earthquake resist, and that is Skarmory. And Gravity turns that into a weakness. So that means Landorus can effectively sweep this team if it gets all of its moves set up. And even if it doesn't, it's still going to put a lot of pressure on my opponent. And it is Yachi Berry to give me the courage to stay in on Mega Lopunny and Raikou. Because it'll live anyone like Ice Punch or HP Ice and just Earthquake back. Klefki is just Fizz Def with, I believe, Play Rough, Light Screen. Actually, I think it's Psyshock, Light Screen, Toxic, and Spikes. And then the Light Screen is sort of just to stay in on Nidoking in case it tries to scout for like Landorus and Ice Beams instead of Earth Powers. And because we do not switch into Nidoking very well at all, so the light screen is there just to sort of help, but it's still leftovers even with the screen, which is something I always like to do with Klefki. And then Lantern is just, again, bulky Volt Switch with, like, Thunderbolt and Scald. And I think it was Heal Bell this week. But let's get it on. He goes Mega Lopunny. I have to run from that into Klefki. He just goes for a free return. Doesn't do too much. So I get a Spike up. And now I decide to predict that he's going to try and get the Landorus with Ice Beam. So I go for Light Screen. And he does Ice Beam. It only does 14. So I can go into Landorus. I know it's Life Orb and not Scarf because it did 14 even with Light Screen up. And now I can Gravity. And now that forces Skarmory to run away, which means I get a free Q on Mew, which does 34, so I know it's Fizz Def, so I know I can just Swords Dance, and if it Ice Beams me, I take very little. So now I Earthquake, and I get a crit, which is pretty nice. And then he taunts, so I just Earthquake again, and the Mew is down. Now he goes Lop, and now he's predicting me to try and preserve this because it has a good chance to win the game. So he is trying to sub on me, but because I have the Yachi Berry, I know he can't knock me out with Ice Punch, so I just keep Earthquaking. He returns, it does 60, and now Landorus has taken out Mew and Mega Lop. He goes into Raikou. Now I know this is HP Ice, and even with the Yachi Berry, I don't live, so I go into Lantern. Now, the set I'm really afraid of here is Subcom Mind. Because even from the position I'm in, Subcom Mind is still a threat. Because with HP Ice, it's still going to hit Latios super effectively. And if it gets behind a sub, I can't Toxic it with Klefki. So what I do here with Lantern is I just sort of Volt Switch. And hope he does either switches or goes for Calm Mind. I just can't afford to have him sub here. And so he Calm Minds, so I Volt Switch into Klefki. Gotta hit Toxic here. And I go for it, and I do, as he Calm Minds again. And because I hit Toxic, now I'm good to just Light Screen. 53, that's insane damage even behind the Light Screen. But now that I have Light Screen up, Lantern is just going to wall this forever. He predicts me, goes for Shadow Ball, it does nothing. I guess I was, oh no, I'm not, I'm Shookaberry, I'm sorry. I thought I was like leftovers, but yeah, I'm Heal Bell with Shookaberry. And so the Shadow Balls are doing a decent amount, but they're not doing nearly enough. So eventually Lantern will win this. So he is forced to go into Scarm. I just go for a Scald as he Toxics me, and I Volt Switch out, and now I get my free Mega again, so that Mega Manectric will be faster than Raikou. Not that that matters anymore. But yeah, I get the Flamethrower off, and Skarmory goes down. Now he goes into Nidoking, and it's not quite in range of HP Ground yet, so I have to switch. And now I just sort of go into Lantern, act like I'm sacking it, have the Shuka, barely hang on, get a Scald off. Now it's in range of HP Ground, and it's in range of Dragon Pulse. So he Ice Beams, trying to get me to overpredict. I don't. We remain disciplined here. So I Dragon Pulse onto the Nidoking. That goes down. And so now I do the little song and dance against Absol. I sub on the first pursuit. I sub on the knockoff. Now here, I think he's going to probably just Pursuit again or something. I just want damage off on this. And he does Pursuit. I live. Now, I was trying to, with those subs, I was attempting to bait a Sucker Punch. I didn't think about the necessarily knockoff. Because if I bait a Sucker Punch, I'm then behind a sub, and the game's over. But he does a good job here. But now that I'm at 7 and I can't sub anymore, now he thinks he's good to go for Sucker Punch. But I reveal Recover, and now I'm back out of range of Pursuit, and I just Dragon Pulse, and he doesn't bother to Sucker Punch again for fear of me getting behind a sub. And also, he's kind of just, he knows it's over at this point. So yeah, Latios wins the game. And so now we move on to face Bobby round 1. So this game, we have Specs Latios with Trick, HP Fire, Draco Meteor, and Psychic. The goal being with Trick to trick the Bronzong because it is a huge threat defensively to my team. Clefable is just Fizz Def with some Spadef, just a generic walling set with Stealth Rock. Klefki is Thunderwave, Magnet Rise, Spikes, and Foul Play. And Spikes aren't really that important in this game, but they do hit Kyurem Black. So if he doesn't go Kyurem Black early, getting up Spikes is very important to limit that. Mega Main, because their ground type is Torterra, Mega Main does not have to run a hidden power. So I'm free to run Thunder Wave instead of a hidden power. So this set is Thunder Wave, Actually, no, it's not Flamethrower. I think it's Overheat. Thunderbolt, Volt Switch, and Thunder Wave. Skuntank is Assault Vest with Triple Dark move, Crunch, Pursuit, Sucker Punch. And then the last move is Poison Jab. I had thought about being Flamethrower to catch the Mega Scizor, but I figured I had plenty of firepower elsewhere to deal with that. Because, Clef has a fire move, Latios has a fire move, Main has a fire move, and then we'll see Lantern also does. So I go with Poison Jab so that I'm a little bit of a better check on the Togekiss. And then Lantern is a really fast max special attack expert belt Lantern with Scald, Volt Switch, Thunderbolt, Hidden Power, Fire. And so the idea of that is to just pick off Mega Manectric. And he doesn't switch into Scald very well, apart from Rotom Wash, and the Murns always suck. So let's begin. So I go with Manectric because I figure he's going to lead Bronzong, and I'm actually modest in this game because his fastest mon is Gengar. So I am slower than Gengar until I get the Mega up. So I need to make sure I Mega safely. And I figure since he's going to lead with Bronzong, more than likely, I can just get a hearty Volt Switch off on that. And we're sort of set. We have the Mega Bulk, we have the Intimidate now, so we can pivot it into a Mega Scizor. pivoted in on a Kirim if need be. So it's just a good position to be in. So I Volt Switch, get a critical hit, do 41 to Bronzong. That's really good. As he goes for sub, which is interesting. So here I just crunch that. He gets up rocks on me. Now here I get insanely lucky. I try to predict a switch because I think he really needs Bronzong. Because even at 47, it's still going to be a decent enough check to Latios. And because I have two potential defoggers, he might want to get up rocks again. So I figure Pursuit is the better play than Crunch, because I think he will try to preserve this. He does not. He stays in, predicting the Pursuit, but unfortunately I do crit him there. Now here I just go to Clef, and this was a bad play. I should have gone something like Lantern to Scout, or maybe Clef Key, but Clefable was only really there as a check to this. I get Iron-Headed. Now I know that this is banded, which means I get a free T-Wave off with Mega Main. So I just Thunder Wave this so it's no longer a threat. He does 27. He's staying in, so I Volt Switch just to get some chip on this. Now this is actually bad, because with the rocks, next time main comes in, it's under half, and then you're starting to get in range of like Togekiss' Dazzling Gleam, or Mega Scissor's U-Turn, or even like Rotom Wash's Hydro Pump. So this is really not going well on this front. These rocks are a big problem. So I just go in with Lantern, and I figure I'm just going to spam Scald and Ice Beam until he switches out, because he's locked into Iron Head, and that's doing nothing to Lantern. But he's content to trade HP on this, and then he goes into this Demon of a Rotom set. And now he subs, and Volt Switch falls short of breaking it, so I'm pretty concerned, because I'm max special attack and I didn't break it. So I just go for Psychic on this. He Toxics Latios. So now I'm like, oh great, this is sub-toxic. So I go into Clef Key. Ostensibly, I'm not really sure why I went Clef Key. Because I kind of wanted to just set up a bunch of spikes to try and just make him make a panicked misplay, because this Rotom is just working me. Now it paralyzes Clef Key, reveals Hex. So this is just going awfully. I get up a third layer of spikes. Just really making sure the Kyurem goes down, because I lost rocks with Clef going down. And now I realize, after he reveals T-Wave and Hex, AV Skuntank should be able to just stay in on this. I'll have to concede it getting parried, but at the end of the day, that's really all I can do. So I do force it out. He does go Scizor, and I get a Crunch, which is pretty good damage. And now here, he really throws me a bone here, because he goes for Defog. Because he panics, even though he has 3 Mons left that are immune to spikes, he defogs away his own rocks, and now Mega Main at 61, that's still out of range of Dazzling Gleam. That's still going to live a hit from some of his other Mons. And so now Mega Main can actually come back into the game more, and I can keep bringing it in. And I can keep switching its Skuntank in on the Rotom. I can switch around with Latios, so all of my Mons are really benefiting from those rocks going down. And now I reveal the fast HP Fire and just pick off Mega Scizor. So now the wind's at my back as I go for a Volt Switch on this. He doesn't sub, which surprises me, so I go to Latios, and here I misplay. Here I misplay pretty bad. So I go for Psychic, thinking it might kill. Sorry about that, my microphone cut off, but yeah. So I Psychic, it doesn't come close to KOing, and I get Hexed, so then I'm down to 1%. And at this point, I figure I need Latios to potentially get off a hit on the Kyurem Black. Not the Gengar. The Gengar is faster than Latios because I'm modest. Because HP Fire knocks your Speed IV down by 1. So I figured it wasn't necessarily worth being anything else. So I just go for switching into Lantern. And now that does let him get a sub up with the Leftovers recovery. But I can break that pretty easily with Mega Main. And as we saw before, it really doesn't do anything to Skuntank. So I can get that Volt Switch off. And because he defogged those rocks, I was able to make that play. Mega Man Ectric was able to do that. And I still have one more hit with Latios potentially. So here he goes Kyurem. I get off a big crunch, and I just sack Lantern here. He gets fully parried, which is really nice for me. I save a sack. So he goes Togekiss. I just stay in with Lantern. I get knocked out. Now here, I'm pretty sure the way he's played with this Togekiss, the fact that he never brought it in on Latios leads me to believe it's offensive. And so I'm thinking that this thing is scarfed. So already I'm pretty sure I know that this is a Scarf Togekiss. So I need to keep the HP up on main and Skuntank to win this game. Or I need to paralyze it with Klefki. And I need to paralyze Gengar with Klefki. So keeping Klefki alive is of the utmost importance now. So I know he's going to switch here. So I try to go for Foul Play to knock it all out, and I get fully parried, which is a real problem. So I just sort of stay in, eat the Hex. I live on one, get the Foul Play because I don't want it to be able to sub. And here I just sack Latios. And so now I'm in a very good position to win this game. It's still going to come down to luck, but because I can now go Mega Main, I get off a Volt Switch here into Klefki. And if he preserves Rotom, it gets a little dicey because he can go Rotom on the Klefki because it's out of range of Foul Play. But basically, if he stays in with Rotom, I'm pretty sure I have this. And so he sacks it because it's only on 20. I get Klefki in, and now one of his Mons has a 75% chance of being neutralized. It's Gengar. Gengar gets fully parried. Now here's another misplay. I should not have stayed in with Klefki because I knew those Shadow Balls were doing nothing to Skuntank because I'm AV. I should have just gone Skuntank. I should have preserved Klefki. That way I don't even give the Togekiss the window to flinch me down. I can just win the game with Thunder Wave. But now I stay in. He gets fully parried as I crit Pursuit. So that's a disaster for him. And now he goes Togekiss. He just is trying to flinch me down. Because see, that Shadow Ball might have won him the game. Because I don't flinch the second time. I get the Poison Jab. And I get the Sucker Punch to win the game. So that game I probably should have lost in the grand scheme of things. But, I mean, we take those. And so our team did win the week. We clinched the first round bye. And so Bobby's team, the Nemo's Nitwits, made it through the first round of the playoffs, so we're playing them again. And this was the team I did not want to play a second time. I was not sure if I could beat them again. But I figure, even though I should have lost that game, I think he's going to be the one that makes more adjustments than me. So I decided to basically hold pat with what I got. I just make a couple of moves on the margins, because I figure he has to do something to deal with Klefki's T-Wave spam. And after the game, we'll find out that this Kyurem Black was Lum, and between that and the Munchlax, that was his response. I thought for sure it was going to be Torterra, so that was why I wanted to switch Magnet Rise for, like, Dazzling Gleam on Klefki, but I knew I couldn't, because I was terrified that Torterra was going to come, because I really didn't have much of an answer to it, because I had Ice Beam on Lantern the previous game. I got rid of Ice Beam for Thunderbolt so I could break the Rotom sub, and I also switched Lantern to Leftovers so that I could get worn down not as badly, so that Lantern could wear something else down a bit easier. So that was the first adjustment I made. Klefki just completely held pat. Mega Main, same exact set. Skuntank decided just to concede. If he runs speed on Mega Scizor, he runs speed on Mega Scizor, and moved what little speed I had into bulk. Clefable is essentially the same set, but this time it has Babiri Berry, so that it'll live a hit from Kyurem or Scizor and get off a Moonblast or a Fire Blast. And more importantly, so it can set rocks, because I really want rocks in this game. And then Latios, the only thing I did was I switched Trick to Shadow Ball. And that was so I could get more damage off on like a heat-proof Bronzong. So let's see how this goes. Turn 1, I go to Clefable, he goes Kieran Black, and here I just stay in a Moonblast. He gets a crit Flash Cannon, doesn't do too much. I do 57 with Moonblast, and that's a disaster for him. Kieran Black now is in range of getting taken out by like rocks and 3 layers of spikes, and any weak hits from one of my faster mons or like a Sucker Punch from Skuntank is going to be enough to do it in now. So that's great news for me. And I also know he's not a boosting item, so I think this entire time he's Scarf. But he ends up being Lum, and I find that out after the game. So he goes Munchlax as I just soft-boiled because I know he has to switch, and I just go into Klefki on this as he pivots into Bronzong. This thing is a threat, so I paralyze it. He Earthquakes. It does a decent chunk to max Fizdef Klefki, so I want to run away from that. And he gets fully parried, so I get very lucky because I assume he Heavy Slams there, and I get Rocks up. Now here I soft-boiled to try and see what he's going to do. I don't know if he's going to predict me an Earthquake or if he's going to Heavy Slam again. And since I live anything apart from a crit Heavy Slam, I figure the best play for me is to just stay in. And he does reveal Toxic, which is good because I didn't want that to get on Mega Main. But here I do a bad play and I switch in hard main Trick without my Mega Bulk. And now I'm in range of like a Scarf Togekiss or really any hit. Even Mega Scissor's Bullet Punch is getting a little dicey now, especially if this Bronzong sets rocks on me. So this Bronzong is doing a huge number on me, but I do thankfully intimidate it and Volt Switch out, and now it's no longer 2-hit KO on Clefable with Heavy Slam. So Clefable does force it out. And so here we have Munchlax. Now this Munchlax does a number to me, especially if it's Curse, which it is. Now here I'm Moonblasting it down to make sure, because if I Moonblast it down and it's not Rest Talk, then it's not really a threat. I'm more than happy to sack Clef for damage on it. But here he reveals he's Pinch Berry with Recycle, so that could be really bad. So I just go into Klefki on the Recycle, and here I Magnet Rise on the Earthquake. And now here I make a really bad play. Here I make a really bad play and I get bailed out for it. I try to Thunder Wave the Munchlax to just sort of slow it down and get some full paras to wear it down. That was nonsense. I needed to just foul play it for damage and get the Munchlax to sort of switch out because I need to burn it with Lantern. And I didn't figure that out until the turn later, and I was glad he went Bronzong. And so here, I'm just desperate to deal with this Munchlax, so I lay down a Spike to sort of deal with that. And now, this Bronzong is still a problem, so I just try to foul play it down. Now, that was a huge full para, because now instead of losing 37% of my health, I'm going to end up gaining 12, because the next foul play will KO. So now Klefki's up to 65, and now we're just rolling. So now, Kyurem is down to 6. I switch out. I'm a little afraid of a Roost, but I figure if I go Clefable, I'm out of range of Flash Cannon, so even if he Roosts, he's basically forced to switch out again, so he'll still be at 6 next time. But here he Earth Powers twice. I thought about going Latios on the second because I thought he was Scarf, but didn't want to overpredict. Now I locked myself into HP Fire here because I don't want that Scizor coming in. That Scizor could get off a U-turn, and because Lantern and... well, Lantern isn't chipped, but Mega Main is. And Klefki's chipped, so that Scizor is a problem, and I do not want it to come in, especially because I don't want him to defog away my rocks. Or my Spike, for that matter. So I force in the Munchlax, and here I do a pretty smart prediction. I know he's going to Curse first, so I get the Intimidate to keep it at neutral attack. And I Volt Switch away to force him to Recycle. And I get Lantern in, and I'm just going to go for Scald repeatedly until I burn it, which is the first one. So I get very lucky there. Earthquake wasn't a 2-hit KO anyway, so I had about 3 chances to get the burn. And if I got all I needed was the burn, I didn't necessarily need Lantern alive. That was just a bonus because Mega Main plus Latios dealt with it at that point. Now he's recycling. I'm not entirely sure why he's doing that. I would have just gone for damage and left Munchlax for dead at this point. And you see there he does do that. And now he goes into Mega Scizor. And I'm like, alright, I'm just going to HP fire this thing like I did last time. And it does 70, so I know he's an offensive set. And Knockoff does a lot to me. And I figure he might think I'm faster. He might be faster himself, but he's probably not sure, because I could just be max speed Lantern, and he didn't account for that. So I think he's probably going to just Bullet Punch, so I just go for Volt Switch, and we have this exact same scenario as we did last time, where I Volt Switch into Klefki on Togekiss and Gengar, but this time it's 100% chance Klefki paralyzes something. So I learned from my mistakes of the previous game. So now Klefki's in. He again chooses Gengar as the one to get parried. I parry Gengar. I live the Shadow Ball, and this time I know better. I know Ghost Gun Tank. We're not leaving it up to chance. So I just Ghost Gun Tank. The crit only does 26. So I get rid of the Gengar, and now he actually does flinch down Skuntank this time. I don't get off the Poison Jab. So he would have had a chance to win had I not preserved Klefki. Now, he would have had to flinch everyone on Latios and everyone on Lantern, who 4x was a Air Slash, but I get the para, I get a foul play off, just, making sure it's in range of anything. And now it's really a matter of who do I want to give the last kill of the season to, and I decide to give it to Mega Main, and I go for Thunderbolt. And so then our team would go on to win that week and the season. Very fun season. GG to all 3 of my opponents. I think this Gen 6 team was insane, and I had fun making this, even if I did have a bit of an audio issue earlier. No second takes is going to be my rule with this, though, so it's going to stay in the video. But I think I'm going to do a couple more season retrospectives. I'll probably, watch the replays in advance next time, so I know what the sets are. So I don't have that trouble like I did for the 2 earlier ones. And I'll probably do a little more out what I'm going to say. But yeah, let me guys know if you liked this. I'm proud of it. I've been feeling washed lately, so it's always good to review my previous success to inspire myself to do better. It's like Klay Thompson watching his 50-point game over and over again. So, have a good night.